Hey, come on, boys. Show your hands. You guys, hey, get out. High. Yeah, good D. Good D, Luka. Good D, Luka.
Oh, right there.
Good job, guys. Way to listen to me. Hey, way to listen to me. Good work, guys. Good work. Great work, boys. My job here is done. Ref, you've been terrible all night, though. Been horrible this whole game.
For 2 shots.
I love it.
Folks, the Dallas Mavericks have won 2 straight games. And look, am I going to take credit for showing up to their game on Saturday night against the Spurs, looking like a young Pat Riley, coaching from the 300s, from the nosebleeds? Am I going to take credit for their success? Yeah. But of course, what's been more important for the Dallas Mavericks is the return of PJ Washington, who missed 5 straight games with a knee sprain. And we saw that on full display in this game against the Oklahoma City Thunder. No Luka Doncic on the road, second night of a back-to-back. PJ Washington gives you 27 points and 17 rebounds, 6 of those being offensive rebounds. Man, you know an Oklahoma City Thunder hates to see PJ Washington coming. A Thunder hates it. They hate when that guy gets going. I'm trying to remember a time where I've seen a player just own a franchise like this. And not like a superstar player. This isn't a LeBron scenario. This is like a solidified NBA role guy who just turns into like Scottie Pippen against the Oklahoma City Thunder. It's one of the most bizarre things I can remember. But the more you think about it, the more it makes sense. PJ Washington's 6'7". He's got a big body. He's strong. He can play up a little bit position-wise. He can guard multiple different positions. A player like this who has the capability to post up, who has the ability to get to the middle of the floor and finish or pass out of that, that's somebody who's going to give a smaller team like the Oklahoma City Thunder quite a bit of problems. And that's what's happened so far in his short career as a Dallas Maverick. And all of those reasons are why he's been so incredibly valuable and important for this Mavericks team. I mean, like I mentioned earlier, he missed 5 straight games. The Mavericks went 1-4 over that stretch. 1-4. They're 6-3 when he plays. They are 1-4 when he sits out. Now, does that mean that PJ Washington's like the most valuable player in the NBA? I did a video last week where I went over the Dallas Mavericks struggles in the clutch so far this season, why their record has been so bad, why their net rating has been so bad. And one of my biggest takeaways when doing that was, man, this team missed PJ Washington badly. Like, they needed somebody with his size, with his skill set, with his defensive ability, and with his effort and tenacity on the boards to really help this team close games and not fall down by 10, 20 points every single fucking game. And they really, really missed that. And there's a reason why the Mavericks have been a top 10 defensive team since they made the trade for PJ Washington at the deadline last year. He's a bigger player, 6'7". That's something that they really, really need. A team that's been lacking in size really throughout the entirety of the Luka Doncic era. And he's somebody who brings quite a bit of positional versatility to you. I mean, we've seen him at times this season guard Victor Wembanyama, guard Alperen Sengun, but then also games where he's guarded Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. I mean, the Mavericks are asking a lot out of him defensively, and he's returned the favor. I mean, he's really answered the call. And without him, this team struggles. I mean, they don't really have a player on the roster. Najee Marshall's a good defender, but he doesn't play as big as PJ Washington plays. Maxi Kleber is a guy who defensively, in theory, does the things that PJ Washington does, but that guy can't stay on the court to save his life. I mean, if you put a gun to my head and ask me, hey, is Maxi Kleber going to play in this basketball game tonight? I would say no and feel very good about my chances of survival. As I mentioned earlier, PJ Washington spent most of opening night guarding Victor Wembanyama. They like this matchup because PJ Washington's a stronger guy and Wemby just doesn't respond well to that. You see PJ does a really good job forcing Wemby into help. Daniel Gafford forces a pass out, and then PJ just doesn't let Wemby seal him off. I mean, this is one of the problems with Victor Wembanyama so far early in his career. He just has to get stronger, and that's a really bad entry pass and an easy steal. I also watched a good amount of PJ Washington tape when he was in Charlotte, and one of the things that stood out to me was I felt like he was a really good team defender that was just in a bad context for defensive players. The Mavericks love doing this right here, peel switching, where once a guy gets beat on the perimeter, a help defender just switches on. In this case, it's PJ Washington, switches on to Monte Morris, and Jaden Hardy switches out onto PJ Washington's guy, who is Ryan Dunn. PJ does a great job just, staying down, doesn't bite on any of these up fakes, contests the shot. That's a really difficult shot for a smaller guard in Monte Morris. One of the things I was actually interested in whenever the Mavericks traded for PJ Washington is how often they would use him as a small ball 5. We didn't really see that much at all after they made the trade last year, but we have seen that quite a bit to start the season. According to Cleaning the Glass, 14% of PJ Washington's minutes so far this season has been as the small ball 5. Some of that has to do with Derek Lively missing some time so far this season as well, and the Mavericks just desperately needing another guy. But I think a lot of that also has to do with the defensive versatility and what what PJ being the 5 kind of provides to this team. So here's an example right here. You see how small the Mavericks are on the court. PJ Washington is playing the 5 pretty much for the Mavericks, and you just see this all the time. Teams against Luka Doncic, they want him involved in pretty much every single action. So Luka starts here on Royce O'Neal. The Mavericks pretty much switch everything. So Luka switches on to Devin Booker. Here comes Nurkic to set a screen, but PJ Washington does a really good job staying with Devin Booker. Gets beat a little bit, but uses that size and that length to recover and get a nice block. Mavericks really utilized PJ Washington as a small ball 5 against this Rockets team as well whenever they made a crazy comeback in the fourth quarter that ultimately fell short. But you just see his defense here on Şengün, right? He's smaller, he's giving up ground, but he's still such a strong player that it's really hard to body him. And that's just great defense right there to force a steal. Again, he uses his strength really well defensively, and that's why you're okay with him playing up. Look at that little weak-ass push-off attempt by Taylor Hendricks. No, sir. He's all over that. Starts this defensive possession right here, walling off this Julius Randle. Drive attempt, forces a pass out, switches on to Jaden McDaniels. Moves his feet incredibly well and forces a tough shot at the rim. If that goes, so be it, but that's what PJ Washington brings to the table defensively. We know Julius Randle likes his bully ball. And PJ Washington, that big frame, that strength, that push-off attempt, we're not going for it. We're done with the push-offs. Another example of this small ball lineup, PJ Washington guarding Şengün. He's going to drop on this screen. And just a great job timing this block attempt right here, utilizing that wingspan and that size. Really nice block on a great finisher going downhill in Jalen Green. It's really no surprise this Mavericks defense is way better when he's on the floor. It's just nice to have this size, right? You already have Daniel Gafford there as this help defender, this rim protector as well. But PJ Washington's more than capable of that as well. Nice little high dribble pickup by Jarris Walker. That's a nice move. But unfortunately, PJ, he's ready. He's a fluid athlete as well defensively. There's another guy in this Mavericks roster, Omax, who is similar size as PJ Washington, and we hope one day can turn into this versatile defender as well. But when you watch him play, there's just a lot of movement on the court and a lot of movement that goes nowhere, and that oftentimes leads to him being out of position. But you see PJ Washington here on this drive against Andrew Nembhard. He does get turned around, but he's able to recover and get to a spot to get a really nice block on this Nembhard layup attempt. Again, more Mavs, small ball. PJ Washington has the 5, the low man. Really great help on Nembhard. Then's in help position again on Benedict Mathurin. And again, that big body, that strength. We're done with these push-offs. Example of a peel switch here. The Mavericks just use this probably more than anybody in the league, if I had to guess, right? It's part of their defensive scheme. It worked great last year when Derrick Jones Jr. was here. PJ Washington is a big piece that makes it fly. Luka gets beat a little bit by Keldon Johnson, but switches on to PJ Washington's guy. PJ Washington picks up Keldon Johnson. And there's just no shot in hell Keldon Johnson's making that shot. This guy was on a Team USA roster at one point. How the mighty have fallen. And, of course, in my opinion, the most encouraging sign from P.J. Washington defensively so far this season is how well he did against Shai Gilgeous-Alexander in this game against the Oklahoma City Thunder. There was quite a bit of concern about whether or not the Mavericks would have a guy who could guard players like this with the departure of Derrick Jones Jr. P.J. Washington is going to have to be that guy, and I think he's done a pretty solid job of it so far this season, including this game against the Oklahoma City Thunder. I mean, Shai's just such a difficult player to guard, but PJ does a great job of moving his body, staying vertical, not biting on pump fakes. That's a good contest on a tough layup attempt. Again, really nice job by PJ Washington right here. Moving his feet, being in a position to contest, not fouling, not reaching, not jumping, but contesting that shot at the rim and forcing a miss and then getting a really tough rebound as well. And that's also one of the key things here for PJ Washington. Obviously, the Mavericks have been great defensively since they made this trade. They've been a top 10 defense since they made that move at the trade deadline. Their defensive identity last year, which really wasn't able to fall into place until they went and got PJ Washington, was a big reason why they made the NBA Finals. Their defense has been nearly 6 points per 100 possessions better since they made the trade for PJ Washington. But what's been a little bit more under the radar and really obvious whenever you watch the games is how much he helps this team in the rebounding department, which is something that can really bite them in the ass at times, especially if they're having to play small due to injuries. Opponents get offensive rebounds off of misses 5 percentage points less when PJ Washington is on the court versus when he's off. That is a huge swing. When it comes to these offensive rebounding numbers, that is a massive swing. And I mentioned that whenever I talked about the Mavericks' struggles late in games and their clutch play. A lot of it had to do with the fact that they really struggled to secure offensive rebounds. And when I went back and I watched the games, especially the games that PJ played in, it was obvious how much he helped in that department. His size, right, is one thing. His strength is one thing. But it's his effort and his tenacity on the boards. I mean, it's something the Mavericks lack a lot of the times. A lot of the times they lack the hustle, the energy to really box guys out, to go for rebounds, and to get in a position to secure a tough contested rebound. And PJ Washington does those things incredibly well. I mean, he had 17 rebounds in this game against the Thunder. 17! That's a huge number. I'm never concerned about PJ Washington defensively. I know what I'm getting there, and I know what I'm getting is going to be good. What does concern me sometimes is the offensive stuff, which can be a little bit of a struggle for PJ Washington. More than anything else, converting on makes and knocking down threes. And there's been a lot of discussion and debate as to whether or not, Najee Marshall should start in place of Klay Thompson, because that would give the Mavericks two really, really good perimeter defenders in Najee Marshall and PJ Washington. The problem with that is I don't think PJ is a good enough floor spacer at this point to really sacrifice by putting another not good floor spacer on the court next to Luka and Kyrie. Like, you have to have that floor spacing, because as it stands currently, PJ is just not really providing that. I mean, he's mid-20s from three-point land so far this season. That's where he was last season. It's a little bit alarming because that number needs to be in the mid-30s. It just has to be. But don't get me wrong, he does positive things for this offense. I mean, his ability to put the ball on the floor and create pressure on the defense is really, really important. That's a crazy pass. Like, hello? A wraparound around Wemby to Derek Lively? I mean, making this three is going to be so much important, because look at the attention Kyrie draws here. Kyrie sees two guys by doing nothing. And teams are comfortable with that because PJ just hasn't made them pay from three yet this season, or really so far in his career as a Dallas Maverick, outside of a couple of playoff games in the city of Oklahoma, which PJ just absolutely hates. Just look at the defense the Timberwolves play here. Okay, Kyrie's going to have a really nice cut. Anthony Edwards gets beat. Julius Randle has to come in to help. Kyrie can't catch the pass cleanly. Mike Conley is refusing to leave Klay Thompson. Mike Conley's guarding two guys here, PJ Washington and Klay Thompson. He is not leaving Klay. This means PJ Washington is going to have the most wide open three he's going to shoot probably all season. He has to knock these shots down to make the defense pay. And similar thing here, the Mavericks attack the middle of the floor against this very small Thunder team. So help's going to come on Derek Lively. All right, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander's now guarding PJ Washington and Klay Thompson, with Aaron Wiggins going in to help. You know that he's just going to guard Klay. There's no way Klay's going to get an open look. PJ, all by himself, has to hit these threes to make defenses pay for leaving him open. Something else, too, when teams decide that they can put their center on you in an effort to help off or sag off defensively, you have to make them pay by attacking them off the dribble. That's what he does there. Şengün just completely and totally out of position. That's one of the worst closeouts you might ever see. And PJ just attacks and gets an easy finish. And I really like whenever they run pick and roll with PJ Washington and Luka. It won't happen very often, but it'll happen more, especially as PJ Washington starts to play more small ball 5 minutes. But look at the attention Kyrie and Klay are attracting on the opposite end of the floor. Right, so PJ rolls to the rim. Halliburton and Nembhard, miscommunication because they're so worried about leaving one of Kyrie or Klay open that PJ gets an easy dunk. And I don't want to make it seem like there's something in the air or maybe steroids in the water in Oklahoma City, and that's why PJ Washington plays so well against the Thunder. It's because this is a huge mismatch advantage for him. They are a smaller team, and just because of the fact that you already have a jumbo playmaker in Luka, who did not play in this game against the Thunder, but Kyrie, Luka, these guys are going to attract the better defenders. You already have a big on the floor that's going to attract the next biggest defender, so you're going to have a size advantage 10 times out of 10. I mean, this is the opening possession of the game right here. They go to a PJ post-up. You see Klay on the other end of the floor is running off of staggered screens. So there's no help defense because everybody else on the floor is worried about that. PJ is able to spin baseline and get an easy finish over Aaron Wiggins, who he just has a size advantage over. Again, Aaron Wiggins, this is too easy. No help's going to come because they're not going to help off Derek Lively. They're not going to help off of Klay Thompson. Easy spin, easy finish, beautiful. The Mavs are very fortunate to have PJ Washington back in the lineup. Hopefully he stays healthy for the majority of the season. Hopefully he starts knocking down some more threes at a higher clip, because if he does that, having a guy who can hit threes with some consistency, right? Mid-30s. Can we get around league average for PJ Washington from three? Having a guy who can do that. Having a guy who can post up against size advantages. Having a guy who could be a pick and roll, pick and pop threat. Having a guy who can, bring the ball up the floor, get to the middle of the floor, and make plays happen off of that. On top of being a very, very good defender, a guy who can defend on ball, a guy who you could have different matchups with, a guy who's very versatile defensively, a guy who you could play small with because he can guard up. Very, very important, very, very crucial. And you could see so far this season how important he is for this Dallas Mavericks team. Please stay healthy, PJ. The Mavs need you out there, PJ. Let me know what you guys think. Leave a like, leave a comment, leave a subscription, leave a heart, leave a follow, leave a thumbs up, leave a celebratory clap, leave a smiley face.